Here with me is Noah.
Hey, hi everyone.
Noah, did you watch Parasite?
I actually watched it a few hours ago. Like I finished watching it like an hour and a half ago. So this is all fresh in my head. I'm so stoked to talk about it.
Morgan, and another friend, Alex Galloway.
Oh.
Noah and I will be making videos like this in the future, so stay tuned. We've got a video coming up about self-portraits. Me and Noah are going to be making some self-portraits and discussing them.
Hashtag like and subscribe.
Is Noah gonna nipple it? Noah uses a common art style called nippling.
Is it stippling with your nipples?
You've nailed it. That's exactly what it is. My nipples have been chafed for weeks because of this, but I think I'm finally getting the hang of it. You guys want to talk about Parasite or what?
None of the opinions I have on this movie are my own. I watched 3 or 4 analysis videos, so I have a bunch of things to say from those, and it's all just gonna be like shitty retellings of what I watched in those videos.
I have not seen any videos. I have seen Parasite, and I've also seen Snowpiercer.
Yes, I've also seen Snowpiercer, but unlike Morgan, all of my thoughts are going to be organic because I just watched this shit.
Unlike both of them, I have synthetic thoughts because I am a robot.
Only Noah's dick is a robot.
So he's a cyborg? A cyborg is like a human with partially robotic parts in them.
He's only a cyborg where it counts.
But we're at a point in time when people are actually getting robot parts. At one point, you have enough robot parts that you become a cyborg.
What do you count as a robot part? Like if you wear glasses, is that considered a robot part?
Yeah.
You wear Google glasses.
Well, if you wear like contact lenses, that's like on your body. If you close your eyes, it's in your body.
It's
Ew.
not robotic.
That's a really gross way of thinking about contact lenses.
So Noah, you just watched it. What are your first thoughts?
One thing I definitely want to start with is I asked my parents if they wanted to watch it with me. And when my mom walked in, she was like, "Oh God, it's in subtitles." And when the movie finished, she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "Honestly, that's one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life." And like, I gotta agree, it honestly blew my mind. I was not, what got me is I couldn't catch up with it. Like a lot of films, I can be like, "Oh, I see where this is going, and I know exactly where this is going." And this one, I couldn't predict it.
I've seen other Bong Joon-ho films, and I kind of know to expect from him as a filmmaker that he's going to have a third act twist. Like something is going to happen in the third act that like takes the movie in like a whole completely other direction. I was like expecting that going into the movie. I was not expecting it to be what it ended up being. Are we doing spoilers? Can we talk about spoilers?
Yeah, totally.
They basically turn the third act of the movie into this thriller, and you're kind of in this like dark comedy mindset, and then it's like thriller, and you're like, what? Where did this even come from?
The first half of the movie, you're like, "This is a kooky caper." It's like honestly really hilarious. I didn't realize I would be laughing so much throughout it, and then all of a sudden, it's like, "Oh no, everything's bad."
Morgan, what did you think? You didn't talk much.
It was really good. It's anti-capitalist, which is dope.
Yeah.
There were a lot of little things that I didn't notice until I watched a bunch of analysis videos, like the fact that the rich people live on a hill and the poor people live underground or in a basement. So there's this higher or lower thing, or they're all hiding under the table, but because the rich people never look down, they can't see them.
Ooh.
That's
That's
interesting.
also like LA, where you live.
You literally can see it. Like you can like you like just walking around the city, you can like look up and be like, "Oh, look, that's where all the successful people live." Not where I am right now. This is not where I will say one of the things I thought was interesting about it is yes, it is anti-capitalist, but it doesn't portray capitalism in a way where it's like pitting rich against poor. It portrays capitalism in a capacity where it shows the downside of it for both the rich and the poor. Capitalism obviously favors rich people, but there are also consequences for rich people of capitalism.
It pitted poor people against poor people.
Yes. Yes.
That's one of the big conflicts that's happening is in this strive to be successful, to have, well, I mean, honestly, for them, it's just to have a little bit of commodity. To do that, they're willing to fucking kill people.
I loved the way that it portrays I guess he's the villain of the movie. The guy who lives in the basement worships the family that he lives in, worships capitalism. And he's like trying so hard to get there, but he never will.
They all worship capitalism.
I loved the part where it's raining and the rich people are like, oh, the rain took away the pollen. Too bad our party had to get delayed, but it took away the pollen. Woohoo! And the poor people, it literally floods their fucking house.
Oh my God, that scene where she was on the toilet and it was just blasting out the sides.
Speaking of the toilet, elevation is a huge theme in the movie. The toilet is the highest part of their house.
Below shit. Jumping off of what Smalls had said earlier with the motion activated lights, these people are so removed from the actual maintenance level of their house that they don't even know that they never installed automated sound system. They're just so used to other people taking care of everything in the house. And install this and ask anyone to install this, it just exists.
A lot of the film was just showing how disconnected the extremely wealthy were. I mean, they honestly just didn't get what was going on. They couldn't see the things that were happening around them.
The whole weather thing relates to global warming. The rich people aren't doing anything about global warming because to them it's like, oh, it's hot out today. What a nice day to go to the beach. Whereas it's affecting poor people disproportionately, like farmers. They're like, my entire crop is destroyed because of this.
The rich people are the ones that don't face the effects of it as much, but they're also the ones that are in a position to do anything about it.
Well, and realistically, the wealthy are disproportionately involved in contributing to the cause of global warming. I really thought the class warfare in this was pretty apt. Especially, I just keep going back to all the poor people fighting each other. I mean, literally just doing anything to get a taste of not even the easy street. I mean, they're still talking about like lying about who his parents were and hiring actors and going through all this just to fit into high class society. Just the desire to fit in, even.
The title is very relevant in the movie Parasite because human beings are parasitic by their very nature, both in the sense that the earth is an organism that we are parasitic on, and in a cultural, societal sense where the individual takes their own needs above the greater sense of culture as a whole. When Ki Jung at the end of the movie gets stabbed, her father, Ki Taek, is like shown having to make the choice between staying at her side or going off with his boss, the father of the opposing family. But it's kind of the pivotal point in the movie where we're shown kind of this tribalism of tribes closing off from each other. Like no longer are the poor people going to serve the rich people at their own behest, at the cost of the poor people's livelihood. They are now closed off, and now the rich people have to deal with things on their own as well. Kind of going back to mirroring the whole idea of like capitalism has costs for the rich as well. Like you become so reliant on this underlying work base that is the rest of society that when it is removed, you are incapable of handling it.
A lot of the symbolism in the movie was smell. He even took the time in this dire situation to pinch his nose when he had to go near the poor person to get his keys.
And that's when Mr. Kim snapped and was like, fuck this, I'm done. That is when he absolutely lost it. And he had been paranoid with that for, a quarter of the movie at that point. Even to the point that he was like sniffing himself underneath the table. He was so worried about what they thought.
They say at one point that it's a smell of public transit. In order for him to get rid of the smell, he would have to completely change his lifestyle.
Yeah, it's just the smell of poor.
We're talking about the end of the movie. The very, very end of the movie I thought was especially interesting, where you see the son of the Kim family. It's basically like, it's not really a flash forward. It's like a fantasy flash forward, but we're not privy to that as the audience when we're seeing it, where he like becomes rich and wealthy and buys the house and allows his father to escape from the basement. And then we see the reality, which is that he's still living in his family's basement abode. And it's kind of mirroring this. I guess it's not the American dream because this is a Korean film, but I think it's like a universal idea is that like if you work hard enough, eventually if you're poor you will be able to become rich. And I would suggest that the movie posits that no, you won't. It is a dream in the sense that it is unachievable, an unachievable goal given the current way the world works.
The American dream is dead. And I think that people are going to look at this time like we look at the Industrial Revolution before there were labor laws and stuff. People are going to look at us and say things like, how did they live like that? They were working so hard and the rich were so rich and nobody was ever going to attain that. They're going to look at that like we look at the times of Carnegie and the Gilded Age.
Yeah, but I guess I would ask you though, is that like we look at that stuff that way, right? But we are still in this current situation. Like nothing changed really when you get down to. I mean, things did change. I guess you could say that it got better for workers, but it didn't get
Yeah, they're
better.
not quite as rich.
I don't know. There's the wealth distribution in America in the current day is worse than it was during the Gilded Age.
Yeah, but it seems like back then we were doing stuff about it. Like we were breaking up monopolies.
I mean, we've gotten so anti-union that there's not a whole lot of protections for workers.
Yeah.
And people are fighting every day. I mean, just look at this goddamn lockdown. Look, okay. The only reason that people are funneling money into these protests, these anti-lockdown protests, are so that they can pull people off of unemployment. They want to get people back to work. They want to start making more money, and they want to stop giving them unemployment. I mean, there's no other reason to end it.
I don't really have an eye for shots in film and like how they do camera work. Do you have any opinions on that?
I'm not a cinematographer per se. I don't want to pretend like I'm an expert in that field in particular, but I will say, I mean, generally speaking, Bong Joon-ho, the director of the movie, is a expert in his craft. There's a recurring problem in a lot of movies, I think, where you don't, if you're like a person who does take a lot of notice of things like cinematography, there's a lot of emphasis on this is a pretty shot or like this is a nice setup for this shot or whatever, and it doesn't serve a purpose beyond that. It's never like anything other than a pretty shot. But I think Bong Joon-ho does a really good job of framing his shots and like using lighting and the other tools that a cinematographer and director will use to further the aesthetic in a way that it reflects the themes. Like I think the example I can think of the best is when you first see the guy living under the house. There's like a flashback scene to the kid having his PTSD moment where he sees Bunsai, when he sees him like sticking his head up, and you just see this like flat shot where like the camera's on the floor, and you just see this black void space that is the staircase, and just like the very top of the guy's head like stick up and then go back down again. In this movie, which up until this point has been like a black comedy with some thriller elements, it is a pure jump scare horror moment. And I think that the fact that it can elicit that kind of reaction in the middle of a movie that is completely a different genre speaks to his expertise in that field. That was a very long answer.
I was watching the movie really close up to my laptop. So I made a little movie theater for myself. And that scene chilled me to my core.
That scene is so fucking
I agree.
scary.
Yeah, it was terrifying. To speak more on the lighting, though, I think throughout this whole film, the lighting was superb. And just as Galloway was saying, all of the elements, they tied in to the story. I think specifically for me, it was the guy in the basement hitting his head to do Morse code on the light. And then you have this scene when the basement of their home is flooding. Or I mean, I guess there's just their home, which is in the ground, is flooding, and it cuts to the flickering of the lights, the electricity's going out, and everything carries over throughout the film. It's not just, oh, this looks cool, so we'll put it in. It engages the film and it engages the audience.
I mentioned earlier like the elevation thread. It's very deliberate throughout the movie that the rich family is above the poor family, and just within the shots they're also separated. So like if there's multiple poor people or assistants in a scene, they'll be on one side, and the rich people, the ones that are assisted, will be on the other side.
Jumping back to talking about the cinematography for a second, something I was thinking about was the color palettes that they use throughout the movie. Whenever they portray where the poor people live, whether it be in the basement, like shack basement dwelling, or in the actual basement of the house, it always has this kind of like sickly lighting. In the basement, it's like this green light that's very, I guess, clinical is maybe not the right word, but like gross, like a gross green, uninviting light. And in their actual house, it's kind of this like yellow piss color. But when they go to the rich people's house, it's like these warm oranges and like inviting colors that we often think about in terms of like beauty. If you want to get really into the weeds on it, in a cinematographic way, especially the night scenes at the rich people's house are these oranges from the interior of the house, and then these like wide shots of the surrounding area, which is like this deep blue sky, which is like kind of generally considered to be like the beautiful shots in cinematography. And there's like these wide shots, and you can like wide angle lenses, and you get a full breadth of the view. And then when they shoot in any of the poor places, they're like tight up lenses, and the color palette is very flat and uninviting.
It was interesting in the movie how it seems like they get to the rich people's house in the blink of an eye. They leave their house, or they leave their apartment, and boom, they're at the rich people's house. And then the one time that we actually watch them travel their entire journey home, it takes forever. And we see that they go down steps and they have to go through a tunnel. But then that's the only time we find out that it takes such a long time for them to get home. So it seems like the travel up is so easy breezy, but it's not.
What did you guys think of the persistent use of symbolism throughout the movie?
It smells so personal. You don't know your own smell. The fact that it's so prevalent in the film, I think, speaks to something that we don't even realize is going on every day.
I thought The Rock was the most, like, you can watch that movie for the first time, and I think almost anybody who watches that movie will be like, oh my god, that's a symbol. Like, it's the most obvious one. He describes what the symbol means. It means capitalism and moving up in the world, and then he gets killed with it. It's like a bing bang boom. That's a symbol.
You don't get killed with it, but
Oh yeah. In the moment when he got hit with it, I thought he got killed with it.
I did.
Yeah, I was like,
too.
oh, holy
Absolutely.
shit, they just killed the main character.
I sometimes felt like I was slipping out of reality, especially when it came to like the Rock's attachment to the sun, and when I kept showing up places. I don't know, it felt to me almost dreamlike, but it was also clearly gripped in their reality, and all of it panned out to be real. So
I mean, I think the movie kind of is set in this like naturalist genre, I would say, if I had to pick a genre for it to be set in, where I don't think it's trying to go for pure realism. And I think it does have stuff like the rock or the smells, these like recurring motifs or themes throughout the movie that in reality people wouldn't necessarily obsess over, but because they represent these larger thematic ideas in the film allows for a little bit more of a like attention to those things. Like I think the rock is probably the best example where like in reality, why would this dude care about this rock? But because the rock is used as like this symbol of wealth throughout the film, and then the end of the end of that character's arc is kind of another poor person now has the rock of wealth and kills him with it.
Would you guys think this is jumping? But so throughout the movie, I felt like cell phones were a symbolism, like a symbol that I just was lost on me. Like I was like, they're using their phones a lot, and I feel like that's trying to say something, but I don't know what it's trying to say.
The rich mom is constantly on the phone with her friends, just blabbering away, while the other people have to be on Wi-Fi to communicate and get money. It's, I guess, something the rich mom takes for granted while the other family is struggling.
I was gonna say, I thought it was interesting. I was just looking over the Wikipedia. I haven't seen this movie in like 2 weeks, so I'm not like fresh on it like Noah is. But I thought it was interesting. I totally forgot that the reason they got the original housekeeper fired was because they convinced the rich family that she had tuberculosis, which is a disease that we have essentially eliminated in like first world countries. It's hilarious that this woman, I mean, like, I think the idea is that she's so poor that she wouldn't even be able to treat tuberculosis. Like, this disease existed in like 150 years.
or it's that the woman, the rich woman's so disconnected from reality that she'd be able to believe
Yeah,
that.
or
You know,
that also.
she'd hear like this poor lady has tuberculosis, and she's like, "Oh my god, my poor family."
That character was so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, she's hilarious.
In the movie, they're like, "Oh, of course she's nice. She's rich. It's way easier to be nice and a good person when you're rich." So she's sort of this disarming, kind personality that you want to like, but because she makes you forget everything that she's ignoring.
My favorite scene in the movie is when she's coming up the stairs, and then it's so melodramatic. The guy pulls the fake bloody napkin out of the trash can. And she's
Oh my
horrified.
God.
I did want to touch on the song's fascination with the Indian culture. They're just like, oh, so cute Indians, where it's like, in reality, we pillaged and destroyed the Indians' culture, and now it's sort of a philia for the song to play with.
I do think that the movie is trying to portray the rich's parasitic nature as taking from these other cultures. I think that speaks to the larger point in general I was making way earlier about Bong Joon-ho. Like, if you look at his other movie, Snowpiercer, I mean, Snowpiercer is a movie made by a Korean director in the English language based on a French graphic novel. But he manages to take these three extremely disparate cultures and kind of mesh them together because his themes are so universal. So I think, like, with Parasite, in terms of your point, I do think that the Native Americans are supposed to represent, I think the Native Americans in this movie are supposed to represent all kind of oppressed minorities who have been taken advantage of.
Do you guys all have any particular favorite scenes in the movie?
Ghost Eyes. That was mine. I watched the scene again many times because I wanted to feel the same feeling that I felt the first time I watched the scene, but I just couldn't get that back again because the first time I watched the scene, it felt like the eyes were looking at you like forever. And then I can't get that feeling back.
I was gonna say, I hate calling this my favorite scene, but I could not help laughing, and it's when they had just discovered the family living in the basement, and they were like fighting, and the fired housekeeper whacks one of the family members with a vase, and in retaliation, I think it's the daughter, Kijun, she pulls out peaches and she dumps peaches on her.
No, that scene was
I
hilarious.
lost my shit because I was like, oh my God. And I was honestly worried that that was what was going to kill her. I was like, she's going to send her into anaphylactic shock by just pushing peaches on her. Well, what this movie did such a great job of is they took very simple actions and made them so thrilling. You know, just like dumping peaches or like hiding under a desk. All the little things that were happening. I was gripped. I was on the edge of my seat like, "Oh my God, are they going to get away with slinking away, inching by?" And
I thought for sure the dad was going to get caught when he was crawling away, but it goes back to what Morgan said. And I didn't think about it this way, that the rich people don't look down. But that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah, when watching the movie, like watching the movie before the analysis videos, I was like, why? They're so clearly there. Or the people in the being in the house, like they were husband and wife being in the basement. It's like, how do they not know? It's like, oh, because they don't look down. They choose not to notice.
I want to talk about really quickly the fact that this is the first ever in Academy Award history foreign language film to win Best Picture.
Seriously?
And no movie in Academy Award history has ever won Best Picture in a foreign language. Can I jump? I just was reading on Wikipedia and I read a paragraph that I thought was interesting.
We're so prepared.
Critics have also considered the themes of colonialism and imperialism. According to Joo Hyun Park, the film plays out with the capitalistic economic order inaugurated and upheld in Korea by colonial occupation, and the use of English language in the film denotes prestige within that economic system. Park's family's son, DeSong, is obsessed with, quote, Indians and owns Native American-themed toys and inauthentic replicas. Song has noted that the Native Americans have a very complicated and long, deep history, but in this family, that story is reduced to a young boy's hobby and decoration. That is what happens in our current time. The context and meaning behind these actual things only exists as a surface-level thing.
Ooh.
I know Galloway said he's reading that off of Wikipedia, but he actually just came up with that himself.
I came up with that Bong Joon-ho quote all on my own.
You memorized it. Well, actually, I should be more clear. Galloway's reading it in Korean and translating it for us.
Wow, Galloway.
We're all impressed, especially all 8 of our subscribers.
We'll get more.
I don't want more. I want the same 8 people that have made it to the end of this video. You're the real deal. If you contact me directly, I'll give you a sticker.
Is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about in particular?
So wait, Noah, can you talk more about how your mom responded to it?
I mean, she loved it. I don't know. I think she was just, I think a lot of people that aren't used to watching subtitle things think it's going to be really taxing. Personally, I watch a lot of anime, so subtitles do not scare me. But I think a lot of people that are used to just like being able to like dick around on Facebook or like, play a game and listen to TV find it intimidating to be like, oh, I have to sit down and focus on this. But I think honestly, it just made it more gripping for her that she had to be so engaged with the film by also reading
That's
it.
kind of awesome, actually. The fact that it had subtitles, which means your mom couldn't look. Is your mom somebody who you were just mentioning, a person who normally will like go on Facebook or play a game on their phone while watching a movie?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times she'll play like a puzzle game or like be on Facebook and we'll have something going on and she'll cut in and out. But with this, I mean, she had to watch it. And so we were just on the edge of the couch,
Does anybody remember the first movie they saw that was like subtitled that they like watched the whole thing? Like I remember mine. I was really young when I saw it.
What was
I don't
it?
think so.
For me, it was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I saw it in theaters in like 2001, I want to say. So I was like 8 or something like that. And I remember like freaking out beforehand because like I was 8, so I wasn't a bad reader, but I wasn't like amazing. I wasn't like a good enough reader that I was prepared to go spend an hour and a half reading Chinese, like reading English subtitles for a Chinese movie. And then like I remember distinctly by the end of it forgetting that I had been reading the whole time.
That's true. That's interesting. That's not a thing I've thought about before. Is if you have like poor imagery when it comes to picturing letters, then watching a movie with subtitles is going to be all the more anxiety.
It's gonna be even worse. It's gonna be even harder to
it's
understand.
Gonna be really hard. But that is a privilege we have, is being literate and not having dyslexia, that we can watch movies with subtitles.
That's an interesting point that Galloway made, that after you were done watching it, you didn't feel like you were reading the whole time. Because before you watch a movie with subtitles, you feel like, I'm just going to be reading the whole time. But then afterwards, it's not even a thought. You don't feel like you were reading the whole time.
Can I make a suggestion for a movie for everybody since you all seem to like Parasite?
Yes.
You guys should all watch another Korean movie called I Saw the Devil.
Okay.
It is technically sort of a horror movie. I would say actually very similarly to Parasite. It starts off one genre and ends a different genre. Now, I will say that I Saw the Devil's opening genre is a straight up horror movie, but it does not remain a horror movie. In fact, what you think the movie is going to be is the first act of the movie. Like, you'll watch the movie and you'll be like, Galloway, I know what's going to happen. And then everything you think is going to happen will happen in the first 30 minutes of it. And then there's a whole nother movie after that. Yeah, it's about a Korean serial killer who is killing people. And he kills this woman who is the lover of this special agent who seeks out the serial killer. He like tries to track him down.
I realized while editing this that we didn't come to a natural conclusion or record an outro, so here I am, signaling to you that this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed watching me make art and hear us talk about Parasite.